Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has been accusing President Biden and the Democrats of fueling inflation and poor fiscal management. Ironically, Florida's high inflation is gaining national coverage as it's well above the rest of the United States. The Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach metro area jumped 9% in the 12-month period that ended in April. In the Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area, they saw inflation hit 7.3% year over year in May. Now let's bring in Yahoo Finance's Rick Newman to discuss about how this is impacting, hey, Rick, DeSantis's election hopes. But, you know, Rick, we've talked about this for years, you and I, on these shows about how the president of the United States really isn't that much responsible for the economy, and it's not for a lot of the indicators. Trump, well, maybe he changed that a little bit because he loved to have the stock market as a referendum on his personal economy. But, you know, in this case, can you really blame a governor for inflation that's in one particular state?
I guess I'd say two things about that, Jared. One, you're right. A president and a governor really don't have that much control over the economy, and the Federal Reserve has a lot more to do with inflation than any executive. But voters still hold the person in charge responsible, whether that person deserves it or not. And there's some fresh grumbling coming out of Florida with these inflation numbers. So just to put this in context, the Labor Department surveys, I think it's 21 cities as part of its monthly inflation report. And those two cities in Florida that they report on now have the highest inflation rates of any cities in that survey. And for each of those, Miami and Tampa, it's more than double the national average. The national average is just 3%. So Tampa's got 7.3% inflation, and Miami has 6.9%. The big driver here is housing. Part of this is that Florida is a popular state. Lots of people are moving there. It's the fastest growing state. So demand for housing is not keeping up. That's pushing up prices. But Florida also has this unique problem we've talked about before with homeowners insurance. There has been all kinds of fraud and litigation in the homeowners market, which has pushed a lot of insurance companies out of the state. They've just thrown up their hands and said, we're out of here. We can't deal with this. So a typical homeowners policy in Florida is $6,000 a year. The national average is just $1,700 a year. So that's another big driver, too. DeSantis did push for some reforms to that. He signed some laws last year, but he and others say it's going to take at least a couple of years before that lowers insurance costs. And meanwhile, some of DeSantis's critics in Florida are saying he needs to get back here to Florida and address some of these problems instead of campaigning in Iowa and Texas.
Well, and let me ask you about DeSantis's campaign. It appears there have been some staffing issues. How is this affecting not only his campaign, but also his governorship in his home state of Florida?
He's cutting costs. So the campaign is getting a little bit ahead of itself, it seems. DeSantis is doing a pretty good job raising money from big donors. He's not doing so great with small donors who send in 20 or 30 bucks here and there. He is getting pretty good donations from some in the business community who think they want to see DeSantis displace Donald Trump as head of the Republican Party. But he's spending a lot, too. And he has he's campaigning like a front runner, and he's spending a lot of money. So the campaign recently said they're going to cut some costs. They're going to trim some staff members. It remains to be seen whether this will affect the campaign or not. But, good campaigns need to be pretty lean. Even if you have a lot of money, it pays to run a lean campaign, and that's where DeSantis seems to be pivoting.
Lean campaign. I'm not going to hold my breath there, but always great to talk to you. Thank you for that, Rick Newman.
See you, Jared.